Oh, f***s. Oh, engine in, but nothing's connected. So thank you very much for joining me back. My name's Bizzle, this is Tea and Bizz-Kits. In the last episode I had the engine in but not plumbed in, and I think we're going to kick off with a ceremonious activity of taking off the engine hoist hooks, because we don't need them anymore. So let's take these off and crack on with fitting the rest of the bits of the car, and I'll update you a bit with the exhaust and a few other bits as we go. So I've just popped back from the shops because as I'm working around the car, I want to take the opportunity to replace any bolts that I want to, or if there are bolts or nuts or whatever that aren't in spec because I'm not happy with it, then I'm taking the opportunity to change them, upgrade them, modify them as such. I want to give a quick shout out to a local company to me called Modern Screws. They're in Bexley, which is in North Kent, southeast London, and they are superb. They're one of these old school shops. I briefly mentioned them in a previous episode, but they're a great company because they're one of these guys that you can just go in and you can go, I need one of these please. Minimum cash payment is £5, and you just basically go, okay, I'll have some of these and some washers and bits and bobs, and it's £5. They have an online shop as well. They'll take orders over the phone, but they are superb. Support your local businesses. Check this out. So when I was taking the engine out before, it was a nightmare. There was a particular bolt that I had right trouble getting to, and actually I couldn't get the bolt out completely until I managed to move the engine back. Anyway, putting it back in, I knew for a fact there was no way that bolt's going back in, right? So I used an M10, so it was probably an M12 that went in, an M10 all the way through, nylock on the other side. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. But putting that through, I just about managed to get a nut on the back, and then I couldn't get a socket, spanner, anything on the back. I've been battling them for 20 minutes, trying to think, how am I going to hold this nut in place to then do a socket Allen key head on the other side? And it dawned on me, I used to be an auto electrician back in the day, and we had some random tools. One of the tools I kept was this bad boy, a cranked spanner. So cut, welded, just sneaks around the gearbox bell housing and allows me to put an Allen key on the other end. Yes! I couldn't help but notice a massive bulge in the loom. Stripping it back, there's blue crimps in here. For the injectors, no less. I can't be having that. So I'm cutting them out, stripping them back, soldering them properly, and then retaping it back up. That way, I know the connections are good. So I'm not videoing every single nut and bolt that I do, just purely because it would just be loads of sped up video and not really interesting, only really the monumental moments, and this is a monumental moment because I've connected the clutch cable back up to the pedal and to the bell housing, so I've got a clutch. Feels okay. Let's hope it works. Interrupting your jolly little time that you're having in my garage as we are taking a quick little trip to Powerflow Exhausts in Dartford. Didn't really know too much about Powerflow. I remember them from back in the Max Power kind of days, but it seems like they're a franchised, nationwide, custom exhaust fabricator. Certainly had some nice cars there when I visited last week and dropped my exhaust off, but they are kindly doing the work for me, which I need following the feedback from Troy. Hopefully, he's done some modifications to just allow the exhaust to be a bit more free-flowing and less restrictive. And so I'm going to pick it up because it should be ready.
Two main modifications Powerflow have done for us here. They've welded nuts on the inside so we can use capexes at the back of the silencer, and they've also increased the collector to silencer junction to 2.5 inches overall. Keen eye amongst you will see that I've got a pretty small oil filter going on here, and that's because I really don't have much space between the oil filter and the exhaust manifold. Ideally, I'll be running the standard Toyota oil filter, but it just doesn't fit here, so I can't.
I just realised something. I forgot to pre-fill the oil rad and the oil pipes before I connected them, and I can't get them back off again. I've cut them, they're all new and everything, but they're probably quite dry inside. My worry about that is that when I top the oil up and start it for the first time, it's going to have to fill all that with oil, so I might get a bit of starvation. So I think I'm going to overfill the oil when I get there and dry run it. That's what I'm going to do. Take the spark plugs out, give it a crank so there's no pressure or compression to get over. It's not going to fire, and hopefully that's just going to cycle and bleed through the oil system. Panic over. I'm happy with that. Taking time, but we're progressing. It's not too bad. Gave these a clean up because they looked really grubby. Now I've got two problems with this. One, I should have taken a before and after because they've come out okay. They're quite nice and new looking. But my bigger problem that I've got, red car, red accents on the engine. Why would you go with blue pipes? They look minging. I much prefer black pipes, black hoses, black everything. I loved max power and all that stuff back in the day. I was a big part of that. But when people started putting blue hoses on and blue wrap around their wiring and different other bits on their car, especially when they used it as an accent, like it was a black car with red bits on it, something like that. It just never ticked for me. It was just never the right way. So I like things basic, simple, minimalist. And here we are on this red car. I've got blue HT leads. I've got blue hoses for the waterworks. It's just black or red. Black or red. Maybe a bit of silver somewhere, but black or red. Anyway, these are the only ones I've got for now, so I'm going to fit these on. All freshly painted, these. This has been bent.
This is why I don't particularly like them, these compression clips, these spring clips for hoses. So it's time to fill up the water. Because the rad is empty, I'm going to disconnect this top pipe and fill up that, and then also fill up the header tank as well. So not only this, which goes off to the radiator, should feed down, but also then I'm going to top it off the top tank. So I've got Allen here, just going to whip this off. Another check for leaks. Top the rest up with water. This doesn't see any frost. I can add some more antifreeze at another point. Water, oil, oil, oil. Next thing out is spark plugs out and a dry turnover. Oh, it's getting exciting. Unfortunately, the new section of 2.5 inch is too long on the back of the collector, so I need to cut that down to length so the silencer can slide all the way up and line up with the lugs as needed. So I'm at that point now where I can pretty much start filling it up with liquids. The exhaust is on. I do need to fit the intercooler pipework still, but I want to get the gearbox oil in because I want to leave it overnight and make sure there's no leaks or anything. So I was going to 3D print something a bit elaborate. In the end, I just ended up with a funnel which I found, probably used for topping up diff oil at some point, and I just literally duct taped a bit of spare tube that I had. So I'm just going to feed that through the side of the passenger footwell and then just top up with oil. Now, I believe if you read instructions Google about topping up Type 9s, it says just fill it up until it starts coming out the fill end. Now, obviously I can't see that, but then I know there's 1.9 litres that go in. So I've got a couple of bottles of SX75W90 GL4, Coma oil, semi-synthetic. This stuff is basically developed for the Type 9 apparently. Coma and Ford developed this oil in particular. So this is the oil to use. And a quick phone call to BGH, Gear Tech, has also confirmed that this is exactly the right oil to use. So I've got two 1 litre containers, and I'm just going to basically use as much of this as I can, bar obviously 100 odd mil or so at the bottom. I know the gearbox is pretty empty because it's got a drain plug in it and it all pissed out onto the floor on the other end. So I'm really expecting this to take at least 1.5 litres or so.
People unified together, you know.
So I've been battling for about 10 or 15 minutes trying to get this new sump plug, this new gearbox filler plug in, and I just can't do it. And I think it's because the access hole is just tiny. So I'm going to resort to drilling out the rivets, bending back the panel. I can't take the whole panel out because it goes all the way down behind the side of the seat, behind the handbrake and all that jazz. So I'm just going to drill out 8 rivets or so, peel it back, then I'm going to drill a bigger access hole and then put it back together. So, nightmare. Another job, scrape my leg. Another job which, you know, put the plug in, 30 seconds. Not today, Bizzle, not today. Where's my sump plug gone? I found it right here on the end of the ratchet because that was the last thing I was using, not the socket. Straight in. assuming that doesn't have to go in at a lot of torque because it's a tapered thread, so it's just going to bite up and anything more will just damage it. So engine oil time. Bone dry. I use Fuchs Titan. It used to be Pro R, it's now Pro S. But this is the top of the range stuff. 15W50's always worked well for me, so that's what I'm going for. Check for leaks, always check for leaks. It's looking good. Next part of the start sequence was connecting the battery, priming the system, cranking it without the spark plugs in just to get the oil pressure up. Turned on the ignition, fuel pump fired.
No! God, please, no! No!
Petrol leak. I've connected up the petrol hoses, not my doing, but it was. When I was trying to drill and refit the side panel to the transmission tunnel after taking it off to try and change the gearbox filler plug.
No!
Turns out that I drilled through a fuel line.
No!
Which is in an inaccessible place, right in the middle of the car. Above the gearbox, can't get to it with the transmission tunnel because it's like I've got a welded plate over the top of it. Saturday afternoon, got the rolling road on Monday. I have a plan. I have some spare fuel line, so what I'm going to do is feed that through, connect it to the engine, get to an accessible place, chop that fuel line and connect up a flexi line from somewhere in the middle of the transmission tunnel to the engine and just bypass that length. Hopefully I've just damaged one of the hose lines, but I don't know that yet. See how it goes.
Leanne, what exactly do you do for a living? You mean you're a hitman?
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get a pitter patter. Right, let's move on to dry crank, I think. Oh. Nothing. Oh, I've connected the wire up wrong on the starter, which is underneath the manifold. And underneath the manifold is a heat shield. And then I can change the wire. Oh my gosh, what was that? It just went.
Pressing the starter button and having no starter was a panic I did not need now. Anyway, after checking the fuses, turns out that I left the earth terminal loose on the battery.
Don't. There's got monstrous gaps on them, but I've never worked with a turboed car, so certainly never modified or done anything this much with one, so I've heard about people gapping plugs, and after reading into it I can see why you'd need to, and why they're out, and gap them. I don't know how to gap plugs, so we're going to stop here while I suddenly become educated. So what have we got here? Let's see how that feels like. I think they're 40. Troy recommended they go to 22 thou. 22. I remember it being a lot easier. Get another plan. First start, I mean the first thing which is good is it actually started. Two things that I've already spotted. One, I don't seem to have any oil pressure sender onto the dash. Hopefully that's just a plug, but I'll check that. But it's too hot around by the exhaust, so I can't do that now. The second thing was, oh my, there was an awful squeaking, squealing sound coming from the front of the car. I sprayed some belt slip to just see if it made a difference. Didn't seem to. I didn't take the belt off, so I don't really know why it's squeaking so much. I don't think it was coming from the supercharger. I think it was coming from the belt, maybe one of the pulleys, which is unusual. Try and get some spray lubricant, some PTFE spray, GT85, something like that on there, just to see me through, but it started. Busy day tomorrow, and then it's up early Monday to the rolling road.
Oil pressure sender was a nice easy fix. Turns out the wires were the wrong way round. Squeaking belt was solved by taking the guide pulley and the tensioner off, giving them a good old clean up and a spray with PTFE. Put it all back together, squeaker's gone. So super excited, I'm jumping in the car, ready to get up on the trailer, but it's not starting, and I don't know why. So now I'm back out the car, I'm jacking it back up, I'm checking electrical connections, I'm plugging the laptop into the Omex ECU to try and find what's going on. Panic, panic, why is the car not starting? It always starts.
Well, it seems like I managed to fix the car. Seems like it may have been a combination of the crank position sensor and maybe a bit of a loose connection for the coil pack, but it seems to be starting now. It's over-fueling heavily, but it seems to be starting, so that means we are good for the rolling road. So finally it's up on the trailer, which is good. I need to adjust the clutch, I need to get the nose cone, I need to do a few other bits and bobs, but ultimately it looks like it's ready to go. I think that's pretty much it, so please remember to like, share, subscribe, tune into the next episode, which might be the rolling road. So we'll see, and I'm keeping absolutely everything I can crossed because to be honest, I'm crapping myself. I really want it to go well. I've put a lot of time and effort, money, energy into this, and I really hope that it performs well on the rolling road and there's no problems. So yeah, so my name has been Bizzle. You are watching Tea and Biscuits, and I'll catch you again in the next episode.